Hello everybody, my name is Jay Lancaster, and welcome back to Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice Rewritten, and welcome to the final part of this miniseries. Just a reminder, this project is not me trying to say that I'm a better writer than the actual screenwriters of the movie. This is a fun little thought experiment to see how I would take a movie I didn't like and reimagine it in a new way, taking it back to the original concept of the film. A Man of Steel sequel that features Batman, all to set up a Justice League movie. With that, let's go to the recap. If you just watched part 2 of the series and you want to save a little bit of time, skip to this time in the video. Otherwise, here we go. In a prologue, we're introduced to a more emotionally stable Batman, in line with the Adam West version of the character aesthetically. We keep Bruce Wayne going into Metropolis during the fight against Zod and Man of Steel, which takes place about 2 hours because Gotham and Metropolis are not sister cities in this version of events. 2 years after the last movie, the mysterious death of a warlord in Nigeria where Superman was involved has put the Man of Steel into public scrutiny and criticized by both the American government and Alexander Luthor Jr., still played by Jesse Eisenberg, with a secret agenda to take down Superman for inadvertently killing his father during the Battle of Metropolis. Lex has also bought the right to research and experiment on Zod's Kryptonian ship and technology, and he's begun to develop new technologies to defeat Superman. In the last 2 years, Batman has gotten much darker, both morally and aesthetically. He stole a shipment of kryptonite intended for Wayne Enterprises in order to develop weapons to fight Superman based off Kryptonian physiology Luthor had researched. Superman, who's been wondering what his place on Earth is, has visited Smallville, after which Martha Kent is kidnapped by some of Luthor's goons. Batman and Superman have a fight in Metropolis, which ends with Batman on top of Superman. We keep the Martha moment, but hopefully have the context change to where people will take this moment seriously. Batman finally breaks, moving back and throwing away his kryptonite spear into the Metropolis harbor. The two decide to team up in order to stop Luthor, and that's where we left the story. So let's get back into Act 3. Bruce flies over to a nearby warehouse, jumping into a room full of guys, beating them all up while using multiple gadgets, before grabbing Martha from a back room.
So you notice this might read like a scene from the original Batman vs. Superman. It's pretty much the most beloved scene from that movie, where we see Batman at the warehouse. The warehouse fight is probably the most liked scene in the whole movie. I think it's the one that people really are responded to, even when the movie was new. And it does work. The action is on point. Everything is really done well in that scene. The problem with the warehouse scene is mostly contextual. So in the film, it's supposed to show Batman returning, this grand triumphant return of the hero after going to his darkest point during the Batman and Superman fight. And that's great, but we've never seen what this Batman is like before the Battle of Metropolis, before the darkening that he goes through throughout this movie. So this kind of feels very hollow, which is why we put in the prequel scene, the prologue at the beginning of the movie, to show what Batman is like before the Battle of Metropolis. And then for this grand triumphant hero moment, Batman's still killing a bunch of dudes, and at the end of the scene, he blows up the warehouse to make sure that, even if he didn't kill it, everybody in the warehouse is dead, except for him and Martha. So that's not really a triumphant hero moment if Bruce is still going around just murdering goons willy-nilly. So I think in this version, we want to make sure that this is more gadget-oriented. He's fighting with gadgets instead of brute strength, and, throwing crates at dudes' heads. Like, if you take a look at that shot where the crate goes hurtling at this guy's head and just smashes him against the wall, and you tell me that wasn't a dead man, I don't know what to tell you. Like, this is definitely Batman just murdering a bunch of dudes in a warehouse. So this version of events, hopefully, is going to make it a little bit less murder Batman and a little bit more triumphant hero, seeing what he was like, remember, during the prologue scene that we had at the beginning of the movie. So that's what this is intentionally doing.
Now, let's add a little bit to the ending of this scene. After Batman grabs Martha Kent and grapples away, and we get this amazing line.
It's okay. I'm a friend of your son's.
I figured. The cape?
Seriously, it's probably the funniest line in the entire DC extended universe, except for Shazam. We see a group of police officers approach the burning building, seeing a group of thugs tied up, Martha Kent standing by. There's a note attached to them, saying, "Kidnapping, assault, breaking and entering, battery, all on Luthor's payroll, signed, Batman." Yeah, I know it's a little cheesy and more of a Spider-Man move than a traditional Batman kind of thing, but I think it brings a little bit of levity to the moment and shows a lighter side of Batman, and I kind of think it works for this moment. Anyway, back to the plot. Clark meets up with Bruce outside of Zod's ship at LexCorp. The two walk slowly through the ship, searching for Luthor. In the background, we can see references to Darkseid, Steppenwolf, all that cool new god stuff that they want to use in future movies. They find Luthor, now in a Kryptonian mech suit, a blend of the Man of Steel Kryptonian armor and Luthor's comic mech. Batman and Superman are thrown out of the ship, crashing into LexCorp's offices and getting absolutely destroyed by Luthor. Clark flies in front of Luthor's fist to stop a direct hit towards Bruce. Bruce uses some kind of gadget to incapacitate an arm that's about to hit Clark. They kind of take turns turn saving each other in the final fight, disabling weapons that Luthor pulls out in order to kill Batman and Superman. Finally, Luthor reveals his final weapon, a red sun generator. He starts building a small red sun that could destroy the entirety of Metropolis. Superman rushes in, grabbing the red sun, disconnecting it from the generator, holding it in his hands while Batman pulls Lex from the suit. The small sun explodes in Superman's hand, creating a giant flash of light. When the dust settles, the sun is reduced to ash as Superman weakly flies over to Batman, who is putting Luthor in handcuffs. He slowly drops to the ground, almost collapsing. Luthor laughs hysterically at this, as Batman asks what Luthor did to Clark. Luthor explains that Kryptonians have a natural weakness to red sun energy, and that prolonged exposure to the energy can take away Kryptonians' powers. Superman struggles to his feet as Batman hits Luthor until he passes out. Batman and Superman are victorious. Batman tells Superman that he's more than just his abilities, that Superman isn't a god. He's a man genuinely trying to help. Clark turns to Batman, thanking him for saving him. The two share a handshake as the sun rises in the background.
So if you can remember all the way back to part 0 of this series, we talked about what I call the Superman problem, which is that you want a Justice League movie. The Justice League, in this point, now kind of has to explain everything because that's kind of the current trend of writing, but that's something to get into in another video. You want to explain why the Justice League needs to exist if every problem can be solved by a Superman. So Superman can't be a member of the Justice League at the beginning, or the threat has to be so big it has to be more than Superman. But you also want Superman in your movie because he's marketable. And, you know, Superman is one of the most marketable superheroes, even if Batman's kind of a little bit more popular than Superman in terms of toy sales. So this is my solution to getting Superman out of the conflict of Justice League. So if they were going to do the Steppenwolf conflict, or any real major conflict, you know, Superman doesn't have to be there, but we don't kill Superman in this movie. We're depowering him, taking him out of the conflict of the next movie, but not doing Death and Return of Superman, because I think it's a little bit too early in this Superman's history to be really considering doing Death and Return of Superman. It just felt like Man of Steel happened, and then Batman vs. Superman, the original, and then Superman was dead. Like, that hadn't been earned. That death didn't impact everybody as much as a character like Superman dying should affect somebody. Like, we'd only known this Superman for 2 movies, and he barely had any screen time in this movie. So if we're going to do Death and Return of Superman at some point, which I don't even know if we should do, that should be in his own movie, you know, with the whole focus of the movie being about Superman. So his death gets the maximum impact. So in this, we are going to take Superman out of the conflict of Justice League without killing him, so Clark Kent will still be around, but Superman will not be a factor into the action of Justice League.
Yes, I know that in comics, red sun radiation isn't used exactly like this. It's mostly seen as a temporary depowering for a Kryptonian or a death sentence, but I think this is a decent way to work it into the movies. Also, it's a weakness of Superman's that's almost never used in movies or TV shows, but it was established in Man of Steel, with Krypton having a red sun and Zod slowly gaining abilities that Superman has when exposed to yellow sunlight. They set it up in the first movie, so let's pay it off in the sequel. So, with the main conflict of the film over, let's wrap this whole story up in the epilogue. We first see a scene of Lex Luthor in prison, being shaved bald and put in a prison cell. You know, like the original BVS. Like in the original, Batman appears out of the darkness. Luthor explains that he knew the red sun wouldn't kill Superman. No, he would survive that. He was just getting the world ready for a great something that is coming to Earth. He says, and believe me, they weren't going to be stopped by the likes of Superman. Yeah, we are setting up the new God stuff for Justice League here. We catch up with the Daily Planet, Perry White reading the newspaper with the headline, Whatever Happened to the Man of Tomorrow, written by Lois Lane and Clark Kent.
Oh man, that sounds like the title of this video. Isn't that really neat how I planned it out like that?
We catch up with Clark taking a trip to Gotham via train. Our color palette is gray and the weather rainy. Clark ends up at the Batcave with Bruce. They both discuss what the plan is going to be moving forward. Superman's alibi is having left Earth after Luthor's arrest, and the threat that Luthor just gave Bruce that something is coming for Earth, who just lost its only superpowered defender. Bruce says that isn't true, as there are others on Earth. He pulls up the data he stole from Luthor at the party, profiling 4 other possible metahumans: a speedster, a teenager augmented with a piece of alien technology, a man breathing underwater who took out a submarine with some kind of quindent, and a woman who looks awfully similar to a woman who fought in World War I. He says that Luthor was monitoring these people for a reason, and if they have a chance to stop whatever's coming for Earth, then the 2 of them need to get them all together. They're gonna need a team. They're going to need a league. Smash cut to black. So that's the end of the movie, but of course the audience is kind of conditioned to stay for the entire credits for the possibility of seeing some kind of tease for whatever sequel the studio has planned. So for this lead-in film, we should have some kind of teaser for whatever's coming next. 3 years later, I'm still so confused as to why there was no post-credit scene in Batman vs. Superman, so we are going to do one for this rewrite, and it goes a little something like this. We see Bruce standing alone in the cave, looking at the details of Luthor's files, at the photo of Wonder Woman in World War I. He tells Alfred he's confused as to how this woman could possibly be alive still. Alfred leaves, and as Bruce turns back to the computer, his arm is tied up and pulled behind his back. We hear footsteps approach Bruce, asking how he got that photo. Before Bruce can say anything, the lasso glows a bright gold, illuminating the shadows and revealing Diana Prince, Wonder Woman, stepping out of the shadows and into the light, before we slam to a title card. Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman will return in Justice League, or to be continued in Wonder Woman.
Either of these options I feel like works for the DC Extended Universe. I think that Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman will return in Justice League. It's kind of a more Marvel thing to do with it, where it's X character will return in the Avengers. So it's not really... it's a very Marvel thing to do with the end credits tag. So I think that to be continued in Wonder Woman kind of sets up more that this is an ongoing story that you'll have to watch each individual part of. It's not really something to skip. I don't think that in the grand scheme of the DC Extended Universe, we don't learn that much about Wonder Woman that we can't imply in Batman vs. Superman, but I think that in keeping her backstory and who she is secret for the entirety of BVS, like, we don't know that the woman in the photo in 1917 is actually Wonder Woman until we get to this point. I guess we could imply it, but we don't see her show up until this end credit scene. We now are more motivated to go and look at what Wonder Woman is and who she is and her backstory, because we haven't gotten even a taste of what her character is like until Wonder Woman. So that kind of makes it more of a continuing saga versus setting up the big Justice League movie, but either end credits tag is fine. And so, that is the end of Batman vs. Superman Rewritten. I honestly did not think that this project would ever end, but I'm so happy that you have all stuck around and watched to the end of the series. So, last minute things before we wrap this up. I don't want to make a part 4 where I talk about the future of the DCEU after BVS, but a few of you kind of wanted me to talk about where DC should go after my version of BVS Rewritten, or for me to write the entire DCEU all over again, but that's too much of a wish fulfillment for me. So here is the basic rundown. I think that Justice League should be incredibly simple, just a bring the team together kind of story. After that, we do a few more solo movies, definitely get another Superman movie in there at some point. You know, your obvious Batman movie, Shazam, introduce some new characters, flesh out the ones we established in Justice League and in Batman vs. Superman. After that point, sky's the limit. You have New Gods stuff to do. That's one of the reasons I set up New Gods for BVS Rewritten, you know, setting up the Darkseid stuff, because I feel like that's something that they really want to do. Really take any Justice League movie or Justice League story. There's some great ones. Tower of Babel is one that would be amazing for a Justice League movie. A murder mystery with a mystery with the Justice League sounds fun. You know, go nuts with that. I think the Justice League has the chance to do that. If you want to go to alternate universes, DC is more suited to that than Marvel really is. So, you know, you could do Crime Syndicate versus Justice League. But that's not really what this is for. I just really wanted to take a look at this specific movie. It's one of the reasons I also didn't really want to do Aquaman Rewritten, because, you know, there's not as many angles that I could really do with this. So that was what BVS really wanted to be. BVS Rewritten was kind of just my chance to take this pinnacle linchpin of the DCEU and try to maybe correct some things and set the DCEU on a path to where it can be as successful as it probably should be. So thank you everybody for sticking around. Of course, the series is inspired by both MovieBob's Really That Bad series about Batman vs. Superman, which I absolutely recommend. He goes into way more detail about some of my thoughts on the movie and about a lot of reasons why personally I don't like it. Like, it elaborates it in more words than I can manage. It's very long, but it's very worth the analysis. As well as, of course, the NandovMovies, Man of Steel and Justice League Rewritten series that he did. a few years ago. Those are both incredible watches. His Justice League especially is very, very good. It's a great movie. Now, it's of course going to differ a lot from mine because he's starting from the endpoint of the original Batman vs. Superman, whereas if I was going to do Justice League Rewritten, well, I'd kind of have to start from where Batman vs. Superman Rewritten. So maybe I'll get around to a Justice League Rewritten at some point. I'd stay tuned for that. Anyway, my name is Robin0928, aka Jay Lancaster. This has been Batman vs. Superman Rewritten, and hopefully this is going out on Christmas Day or Christmas Eve, so have a happy holidays. I will see you all in the new year. Thanks for watching. Whoa, that was a long video.